Hi there, good afternoon and good evening to everybody joining us from Canada. My name is Edwina Rushe and I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Cumbria. And this afternoon's presentation, I'll take you through a little insight into what it's like to be an occupational therapist and what it's like to study here at the University of Cumbria. Occupational therapy is all about doing. Occupational therapy is a science of looking into what occupation means to people and looking at what people need to do and want to do in order to fulfill meaningful lives for themselves. I've been an occupational therapist now for more than 15 years, and I've worked in a variety of different countries and different settings, from physical health to mental health settings. And I personally find it a very rewarding and challenging career. And so I want to take you further into what it means to be an occupational therapist. We'll be with you here for the afternoon at the University of Cumbria. So please feel free to come back in and ask me any further questions once you listen to this presentation. And we'll all be happy to share our ideas and our experiences with you. So you might ask yourself, is occupational therapy the career for me? Or I've been thinking about occupational therapy, but I'm not really sure what it is. So some of the questions I would ask you to ask yourself are you a problem solver? Are you what we would consider a people person? Are you good at sizing up situations and looking for a solution? Do you want a diverse career that helps people to live their lives as they wish? Do you want to work in a dynamic and challenging profession that makes valuable difference to people's lives? If the answer is yes to any of these thoughts and questions, then perhaps occupational therapy might be the career for you. One of the definitions we talk to here in the United Kingdom at the University of Cumbria about occupational therapy is defining it as the ability to enable people to live competent and confident lives. And I think that's a really foundational aspect of what it means to be an occupational therapist. The role and practice of occupational therapy aims to enhance well-being in all aspects of a person's life. And it aims to minimize the effects and the barriers that people experience due to dysfunction, illness, mental illness, or environmental barriers. So it's got a kind of far-reaching, wider impact for people in their societies and in the places that they live within their communities. People often ask, but what does occupation mean? Doesn't it mean your job? And we often say that, yes, it does mean also it means your job. But occupational therapy is more than just the job. So it's actually the activities that you do or that you need to do every day in order to live your life. And it could be things like sleeping, having a routine, engaging in your hobbies and your interests, going to work or seeking employment. Or it could be just simple everyday activities like socializing with people, cooking food, or cleaning your house. So for a moment, I would like you to think about some of the activities and occupations that you do every day. So perhaps you want to pause at this point. Maybe you want to write down some of the activities you like to do every day. Maybe you want to draw on some of the occupational interests that you have. I really like bike riding, and so I can't imagine if, I couldn't imagine if I was, unable to bike ride, because it means a lot to me to be able to bike ride with my club, to bike ride with my family, to have a bike. And so sometimes people are disabled and not enabled to engage in the activities and the occupations they want to because of mental illness or physical illness. So what might it look like for you if you could not do the things that you want to do or need to do? And so when we ask our students this question in our class, we encourage them to engage in practical everyday tasks. We encourage them to think about what are their routines and what are the things they need to do every single day. And then we ask them to think about what would happen if perhaps you had broken your arm, or you were unable to write with your dominant hand, or perhaps you were unable to drive for a period of time. And so often students relay back to us that it would be difficult, it might be challenging, that they might have to think about alternative ways to do things or alternative ways to adapt themselves or their environment so that they could still try and engage in some of the occupations and activities that they needed to do. So overall, when we study occupational therapy here at the University of Cumbria, we bring the theory of occupational therapy to life. We try to incorporate practical skills labs so that you can experience what it's like to maximize independence. We give you opportunities to look at building skills and to simulate what it would be like if you experienced illness or disability in certain areas. So overall, occupational therapy works to maximize the effects of disability, to minimize the effects of disability and the environmental barriers that people have in order to achieve their full potential. So over my period of the last 10 years of being an occupational therapist, I'd like to just tell you a little bit about where I've worked. I've worked in an acute care setting, in a physical healthcare role in a hospital setting where people experienced things like stroke and orthopedic surgery. And so a lot of these clients and service users needed to relearn skills and look at adapting the way that they function so that they could go home and live a life that was as independent as it could be. I've worked in an early intervention and prevention role around early intervention psychosis in the community setting in Australia. I've worked in an educational and training role for a while, where I was able to impart some of the importance of engaging in occupation and having routines. And I worked in a prison setting, teaching prison officers about the benefits of having a routine within the prison setting. I've worked in the area of environment and environmental adaptation so that people were able to actually access their house and their homes and look at some, sometimes intricate and sometimes basic modifications that they could make to their home so that they could live a functional life with their families. I've engaged in group work activities and one-on-one. I've also worked in a private practice setting. And I've led a pilot project in Victoria in Melbourne for about 8 years, looking at the occupational therapy role in suicide prevention and preventing harm from people who are experiencing high risk behaviours, who experience mental illness. And so right in the centre of this diagram, you'll see occupational therapy core values. And some of those core values that I utilised in all of my work were the ability to listen to patients, to understand what it was that was meaningful to them, and working primarily to enable them to discover new ways to do occupations and activities so that they could live a life worth living for themselves. Excuse me. Some of the interventions that we provide within occupational therapy are looking at people's motivation, looking at their patterns of occupation, looking at time use and environment adaptation, skill building so that people either learn new skills or they can adapt their skills so that they can engage in things like dressing, washing, toileting, feeding, driving. Looking at harm minimization, so looking at perhaps maybe smoking or substance abuse or other kind of more harmful occupations, and looking at ways to reduce the harm or minimize the harm in that setting. I've also worked in a role where we looked at particularly smoking cessation and risky sexual behaviours. And lastly, occupational therapists often work in risk assessment and looking at how to help people to make what's called safety plans when they are at risk in terms of their mental illness. So working towards a recovery orientated model. Within occupational therapy, we believe that small changes can have really big impacts. And I guess it comes back to thinking about if you experienced an accident or an illness or something disrupted you from engaging in some of the activities or occupations that you were unable to do. Often it's small, subtle changes or adaptations that can have a big impact, and they can lead to you living a more independent and functional life. So what does a career in occupational therapy hold for you? It's an interesting profession. There are lots of jobs in occupational therapy in acute care settings, in private practice, in the council, in adult social care, in prisons, in colleges. It's a very varied career. So occupational therapy is a mix between the mental health side of a person's life and also the physical health side. So we try to take a really holistic view of the person. It's given me the ability to travel and to work abroad. So I've worked in Ireland and the UK and Australia over my 15 years. We've got really strong professional identity here in the UK, where we're registered with a body. We have the Royal College of Occupational Therapy, which disseminates research and has a research publication attached to it. Occupational therapy has afforded me a lot of opportunities to develop skills in leadership, in management, in organisation and planning, and looking at ways to develop services so that they're maximised for people who need them. And within the University of Cumbria, we focus on strong employability skills. So when you're training to be an occupational therapist, we ensure that what you learn in the classroom is what you work on when you go out on your practice placement. So there's lots more information that I would like to refer you to. One is the Royal College of Occupational Therapy and Occupational Therapists, often acronymed to RCOT. This will give you further information on what it's like to be an occupational therapist within the UK, where occupational therapists work, and it will also link you into some research, publications, and some recent statements from the Royal College of Occupational Therapy, particularly in new and emerging areas of occupational therapy. Our University of Cumbria homepage is here too. You can log on at any point and speak to a student. You can also find myself, and some of my colleagues are available if you have any specific questions. We also have 2 active occupational therapy pages, social media pages. One is our Facebook page and one is our Twitter page. We generally use those platforms as an opportunity to engage students in a range of development opportunities. We often highlight recent publications within our team, and we signpost you to trainings that are upcoming. Within the University of Cumbria, we teach the BSc of Occupational Therapy, which is a 3-year program, and you can do the BSc of Occupational Therapy at Lancaster and Carlisle. We have 2 campuses, about 1 hour. There's about 1 hour distance between Lancaster and Carlisle. We also have a Master's in Occupational Therapy, which is a 2-year program. And both the MSc and the BSc programs engage in 1,000 hours of clinical practice placement. So again, going back to the skills and the theory that we learn within the classroom is really personified and brought to life in those 1,000 hours. And so all of our courses are accredited with the World Federation of Occupational Therapy, and they lead to registration here within the UK. People enjoy coming to the United Kingdom, and particularly to Carlisle, because we're very close to the Lake District. We're in really close proximity to a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And we've got lots of really good rail and network links linking us throughout the Scotland, to Northern Ireland, and to the rest of the south of the UK. People enjoy our university because we have small class sizes and we offer individual support for students. We have a buddy system where you will meet a student who's in a year ahead of your program, and they will give you an opportunity to talk about and settle into your course and to just have a sounding board. We also have a personal tutor system whereby one of the lecturers will be assigned a student, and we will work with you to settle into the university, and also we'll be there to support you throughout your 2 or 3 year program. I hope that has given you a little insight into what occupational therapy is and what occupational therapy would be like for you studying here within the University of Cumbria. Please feel free to pop in over the course of the evening and speak to myself or one of my colleagues, and I would love to hear from you. And for anyone who's in the room at the moment, I would welcome and encourage any questions that you might have. Thank you very much. If there are no questions at this point, I will say that I will be available in the chat room for the rest of the evening, and I look forward to meeting you soon. Thank you very much.